Hello, everybody. It's Samuel, and welcome back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Reboot Episode 2. And today we are going to be picking up where we left off with the Genosha TV show. And this is the second project of the universe. I wanted to immediately pick up on the aftermath of the Wolverine and establish interpersonal relationships of the characters from that movie as a means of building up the X-Men in this universe. So, they're going to be one of the major cornerstones, so I think this show fits. So, this is going to be the Genosha show. Instead of being 12 episodes like I previously mentioned, I'm going to shorten it to 8. It is about the island just north of Madagascar and by Seychelles, and we're just going to hop right on into it. And I think Tony Gilroy will be the showrunner, but I don't really, it's not the same as a director, so I'm not super worried about mood boarding that. Okay. Episode 1 is going to be really kind of just an establishing episode. It's not super crazy. There isn't anything crazy, like big going on. But after the journey from Japan, our mutants will arrive on the uninhabited island of Genosha. And 6 months later, we are on the newly established capital city of Hammer Bay. Logan is going to awake to his 7 a.m. alarm. And next to him will be Magic in bed. And now, this is really the only big part of episode 1 is that Magic and Wolverine have an unofficial romance, but really it's not anything serious. It's kind of just two people who have been lost for most of their lives, trying to find comfort and solace in each other. And Wolverine, of course, being a hard shell, that is the way he tries to do it. But other than that, it's not a serious relationship dynamic. It might go somewhere, but as of right now, it's just very simple. So it is this first episode. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is just election day. Emma Frost wins the election and takes hold of presidency on Genosha, and then tells the other three members that she's planning to submit to the UN for sovereignty, and that she'll be headed to Geneva, Switzerland, as a means of securing them. Bishop asks if he can accompany her, and she agrees. Logan seems uninterested in working with human nations altogether, but it doesn't matter. Genosha will be fighting for sovereignty in the next several episodes of the show. Also, we introduce Jubilee in episode 1, who's a part of Logan's camp, or his school for young and gifted mutants that he's trying to teach. Episode 2 will be the Geneva episode. Bishop and Emma arrive in Geneva for the meeting of the UN decision of statehood. Bishop is plagued by fragmented visions of a reality which does not seem to be his own in this episode. He takes some time to himself, and he's sort of sent into a state of frenzy while in Geneva. Emma and Bishop head to a local pub where we are introduced to two prominent political figures: Magneto, Eric Lehnsherr, and Victor Von Doom, not yet in costume, president of Latveria. Both are strong proponents for the idea of Genoshan statehood, with Magneto himself being a mutant who arrived in Geneva to ensure things wouldn't go south. So we learn here of Magneto and Charles' school for the young and gifted, and Doom also presents his goals for a Genoshan Latverian allyship where mutants have access to new possibilities and free educational opportunities. Then we follow Emma and Bishop after they leave the pub, moving back to their hotel when suddenly an anti-mutant riot breaks out in downtown Geneva, and they are forcibly separated by the mob. We follow Bishop here, who in trying to find an escape is heckled and eventually sent into another state of the fragmentary vision dreams he's had before. This time it seems more vivified and intense, and semiotically features what feels like multiple different realities merging into one. Nothing is pointed out specifically to him, but his consciousness seems to be ripping itself into several moments of time. He suddenly comes back to, and we're at a park bench with Emma. They return to their hotel, and Magneto asks them to meet him in a Genevan field so they can showcase their powers. Emma shows her hardening abilities. Magneto showcases his ability to telepathically move metal, but Bishop is lost. Though he spent all his time with the main Genoshan characters, he's never actually been attuned to what his powers were. In fact, for the most part, his childhood and teenage years are mostly a blur to him. Magneto seems concerned for Bishop and tells him that Charles has the unique power of being able to look into people's brains, and that if he would be willing to take a stop at the school at some point after their trip in Geneva, they could figure out what was going on. The final sequence of the episode kicks off after Bishop decides to take a separate route home because he needs to clear his head. He is confronted by a mysterious heckler, a woman with sunglasses, a bob, and two guns. She tells Bishop that not all mutants have physical powers, but some work through their brains over everything else. Her name is Tessa, but she's really the mutant Sage, a member of the Hellfire Club, which we'll find out about soon. In this case, she has not been sent to infiltrate the club by Charles. That's what happens in the original run, but she's just here for storytelling. She has one of the most evolved brains in the world. That is what she tells Bishop her power is. Bishop asks her if she knows what his powers are, but she's stupefied. That's what she's been trying to figure out, but to no avail. She figured she'd ask what Bishop had seen in his moments of vision, but he doesn't know. Realizing she has nothing to draw from the conversation further, she leaves Bishop with a parable and flees off into the night. The episode ends. The next episode is the Genoshan decision, but we open in Genosha, where Wolverine is awoken to news from a few young mutants who state that they have found a material in a nearby underwater cave while playing around. Logan and Magic go out to check and see what they mean, and they find Jubilee and a few other young mutants playing around with an extremely tough metal. Wolverine shoots a call to Emma to see if she knows what it may be, and she looks to Magneto and Doom for help. Magneto asks Emma to tell Wolverine to have the metal exported to the address of Charles' school, but with the meeting of statehood to be decided in under 48 hours, Emma doubts that they will figure out what it is by the time the meeting starts. She realizes that this metal actually might provide crucial leverage, and she asks Magneto to play a game of telephone between the school and Genosha, and we find out through Logan's descriptions to Emma, which are then relayed by Magneto to Hank McCoy, that the material has a 99% chance of being adamantium. Emma asks Wolverine if he can find a way for the metal to be exported to Genosha for verifiable proof of this regard, and Wolverine says he will look into things. Doom and Magneto tell Emma that if she would be willing to fork up some of the adamantium for trade exportation to UN allies, it might win them the possibility of statehood. On the other side, Wolverine asks Jubilee if she knows any mutants that have the ability to travel fast. Jubilee responds that he should knock on the door of the Bowbird twins, Jean and Jean. Wolverine and Magic hurry over to the twins' house, and they meet Northstar and Aurora, the names the twins have made for themselves. They both possess the powers of unfiltered speed and flight, alongside some photonic powers. Wolverine asks if they can transfer our metal to Geneva for the UN meeting, and the two tell them they could probably make it before the meeting commences, and so they do. As the meeting is nearing, Emma, Bishop, and Doom attend the UN pre-meeting reception. Magneto is excluded because he hosts no political power and the terms of the UN. He's only in Geneva on hearsay of Genosha. At the reception, we experience a few micro-interactions. Doom engages with several political leaders whom he has respect for. Emma Frost engages in conversation with Lady Deathstrike, who is Japan's representative. She tells Emma that the prospect of war between Japan and Genosha is almost certain if statehood is won today, but Emma asks if she would really attack an island entirely full of superhuman mutants. The two get into it, and Deathstrike shows Emma the scar left by Mystique and tells her that she will not forget her father's death. On the other side, Bishop runs into Tessa, the representative of the state of Yugoslavia. Bishop asks if he can trust Sage, and she tells him that she is a supporter of his cause. The final sequence of the episode takes place in the meeting room of the Genoshan statehood decision. We hear several arguments montage style, but we stop when Deathstrike begins to speak. She tells the UN that one of the mutants Emma and Bishop were working with while in Japan was the one who killed her father, the former president of Japan, and that to recognize the Genoshan cause would be a direct declaration of war to Japan from the organization. Emma and Bishop deny their personal involvement with Mystique, but are forced to admit that a current citizen of Genosha, Logan, does have personal ties to Mystique. This seems like an atomic bomb to disrupt their case for statehood, but Doom steps in on behalf of the mutants by saying that Wolverine's involvement with Mystique was purely based on Japan's targeted attack on in-state mutants, further explaining that Wolverine has spent several years uninvolved with Mystique until the decision from the Japanese government to target them based on Emma and Bishop's claims. Deathstrike then says that even if that were true, they were still together mere days before the death of her father. She then tells Doom that she would support the cause of Genoshan statehood on the contingency that Wolverine be extradited to Japan to pay for his crimes. Tessa then steps in on behalf of the mutant cause, arguing that Japan's independent actions of attacking mutants did not fit with UN policy, and that by doing so, they placed other UN nations at risk of attack from mutants as a revolutionary response to Japan's targeted discrimination. Whether or not mutants deserve rights has nothing to do with the potential damage that could have, and still is being monitored across the member states. In this case, Tessa says that it should result in a wash, and that Logan should not have to face extradition, but that Genosha should have to pay Japan some reparational costs. The decision seems to be against Emma and Bishop, but then Northstar and Aurora arrive, bursting through the meeting room to present the medal that Logan had given them. Sage quickly identifies it as adamantium, which results in Emma declaring that under UN allyship, Genosha would provide allied partners with the rarest metal in the world under conditions that they not only become recognized, but also that mutants in member states would remain safe by law from persecution. That means that Japan would be able to gain adamantium at the cost of withdrawing their targeted campaign against mutants. After this, member states begin to vote, with it coming down to Britain's representative, Nathaniel Essex, who votes in favor of the establishment of Genoshan statehood. Genosha becomes an officially recognized state based on the vote, causing immense celebration between Emma, Bishop, Northstar, and Aurora. Doom congratulates them and says he looks forward to working with them, and after everyone disperses, Nathaniel comes to the mutants and tells them that he would like to accompany them on their trip back to Genosha as a means of research discovery. Emma and Bishop seem reluctant, but Nathaniel tells them of his adopted daughter mutant Psylocke, who needs a permanent home. He tells them that his intentions are for her to live in Genosha and integrate into mutant culture while he works with them to develop research on the island and mutant powers as a whole, with his friend, Scribe, watching over Britain for his lost time. He finally tells him to consider the potential capacity for Britain to wholesale accept mutants based on his help, and Emma and Bishop agree to let him come back to Genosha with them after they finish their business in Geneva, and the episode ends. Episode 4 is Emma and Bishop working to establish Genosian embassy in Geneva with the help of Doom and Essex. Doom and Essex don't seem to be on the best terms, but because of Doom feeling that Britain's colonial history fares oddly for Essex intentions of residing within Genosha, but Emma seems to find that Essex's adopted daughter Psylocke seemingly confirms that Essex holds good intentions. Bishop tells Emma to perhaps be careful, but Emma ultimately holds that she will keep a close eye on Essex during his time in Genosha. In the meanwhile, Northstar and Aurora are trying to kill time in Geneva while they wait to return with Emma and Bishop. While hanging around Main Square, they encounter a young mutant couple frantic and worried. The two go up to speak to them. The defense mechanisms from the two mutants cause a battle to take place in the middle of the city. Before things can get too hectic, Magneto flies down to break things up. Magneto asks the name of the two mutants, and they speak back to say that it is Anna and Remy, or better known by us as Rogue and Gambit. Their paranoia causes Magneto to ask follow-up questions, but both Rogue and Gambit seem to insist that their memories of the last year are virtually non-existent besides the current week. Magneto decides to take the two to the Genosian embassy where they can remain on protected ground. However, as Magneto begins to guide the mutants toward the embassy in Geneva, a tall, black-haired, black-clothed woman arrives to confront them. She tells Magneto to take Northstar and Aurora and leave the other two mutants, for they are under the jurisdiction of greater law and will be taken into custody. Magneto asks who she is for this to be true, and she replies cryptically, though we will know her to be Selene, the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, with Sage, Essex, and Scribe. She throws a hood over her eyes to block her face from being seen, and tells Magneto to hand the two over. Magneto tells Northstar and Aurora to take Rogue and Gambit and run, but Rogue yells for nobody to touch her, for her powers could overwhelm them. The mutants have to take off at normal speed then, as Selene and Magneto clash in the middle of the city. Unfortunately for Magneto, the Black Queen is far stronger than he expected. So this entire sequence after is going to be shot like a tracking sequence, with Selene hunting down the mutants in one continuous shot. People will get split up, begin fighting, but whatever happens will happen without cuts. That way, we're constantly watching as people try and get to the embassy. If you've seen Orson Welles' Touch of Evil, think that opening scene, but for an even longer time. Selene is indubitably stronger than the four younger mutants, and it will take some insane luck through insane set-piece action for the mutants to somehow stumble into the embassy and to safety as Selene is forced to back off. Magneto relays the information to Emma and Bishop, and they all agree that considering the memory situation being similar to Bishop's, that Rogue and Gambit should be taken to Charles' school. Regardless, they realize that they need to get out of Geneva and to do so without calamity, so Emma organizes with Doom to ensure safety for both leaving parties. Magneto with Rogue and Gambit, and Emma and Bishop with the twins, Essex and Psylocke. Bishop tells Magneto he'll make his way to Charles soon, but that he has to attend things on Genosha first. The final part of the episode is a scene where Magneto talks to Charles in a phone booth about the potential investigation of finding out who attacked in Geneva. Might we get a film about that? Maybe. And a scene where a gathered group talk to Selene about the prospect of Rogue and Gambit shaking things up by getting their memories back. Episode 5, keeping this one short. Back on Genosha, Wolverine takes up Magic's advice and goes to therapy with the mutant Birdie. Birdie is our therapist. This is basically the Jules Euphoria episode, if you've seen that, and I'm going to keep it just as that. That is the entire episode. Okay, next episode. 2 differing plot lines. The first involves Essex, Wolverine, and Bishop, who go to the opposite side of Genosha to begin a portside harvest of adamantium, as well as help build a laboratory for Essex to work within. However, when the three get there, they encounter a ship featuring the Crimson Pirates, who have already begun a secret harvest of adamantium as a means of black market profit. Seemingly having no powers, Essex is forced to retreat while Logan and Bishop begin fending off members of the pirate clan. Everything seems to be going well until the pirate Bloody Bess enters the scene. She's a master swordsman and gunman, completely neutralizes both Bishop and Wolverine with her superhuman abilities and technique. On the beach, we'll get a Last Jedi Red Room-esque fight between the three. Logan and Bishop are strong fighters, but they're still both relatively young, around their mid-20s. Wolverine and Bishop's neutralization forces an unfortunate predicament on Essex, who is forced to use power beams from his head as a means of driving Bloody Bess to retreat with her wounded clan, still having smuggled some adamantium. After Wolverine and Bishop recover, they'll begin pressing Essex on his decision to not tell everyone he had powers. This forces Essex to reveal to the two mutants that his powers are not genetic, instead that his research on genetic mutation allowed for him to not only create, but suppress and increase the level of powers in a specific gene. Bishop and Wolverine still seem skeptical, and they tell him they'll have to reveal this information to Emma. He agrees to do so, telling them that his only goal is for the advancement of genetic research for the race of mutants, and that his own discovery of being able to elicit them for himself is not a matter of power, but a matter of creation. The second side of this episode will see Magic helping Emma for some sort of capital things. It'll be very simple. It's going to be a lot of fun, and then we'll get to the final part of the episode where Logan and Bishop take Essex to Emma and Magic, in which a discussion begins over the decision from Essex to hide his powers, as well as his genetic research. Emma seems frustrated, but then Essex drops an absolute bombshell, that he only began researching genetic suppression after an attempted suicide by Psylocke, who had been driven depressed from the exhaustion of having powers and not being able to escape them. After that, he began to dedicate his life to ensuring that something like that would never happen again. Magic asks Essex why he couldn't just teach Psylocke to love herself within her own skin and such powers, and Essex replies that through his research he encountered something astonishing, that Psylocke's depression was genetically attached to her mutant gene, and that the only way to help her would be to suppress the both, and that during the discovery is when he accidentally caused himself to gain powers, though he is unsure of how. That is why he has come to Genosha, to figure out how to capture that magic in a bottle again. Everyone in the room is convinced by his explanation, and they apologize to him, telling him they'll do all they can to support him, Psylocke, and any other mutant who experiences anything like Psylocke. Next episode. So in the previous episode, Magic is going to tell Emma to involve herself in the community and get involved with some of the young mutants that work with Magic and Wolverine. So Emma takes her up on that offer and takes the mutant youth on a hike to the Genoshan Mountains, featuring Jubilee, Psylocke, Northstar, Aurora, and 3 newcomers, Callisto, Chamber, and a hooded girl by the name of Ronnie. Both Callisto and Chamber have physical deformities at the cost of their powers, with Chamber having a mouthful of energy and Callisto having an eye patch as well as severely scarred skin. As we spend time with these 7 mutants, Emma tries to get to know them, to take them under her wing and have them ask her tough questions, reveal their worries, and talk about the general ideas they have of Genosha as a whole. In doing so, we find out that Callisto and Chamber are really upset about physical deformities, asking Emma why she has only ever sent out, advertised, and represented Genosha as a country with idyllic mutants who either fit in physically with everyone else or are willing to abide by the status quo of the world. This question challenges Emma, who tries to assure the 3 that her decision to do so was unintentional, and that she would work in the future to ensure that other mutants would have the chance at the spotlight. But Callisto and Chambers seem to continue forcing the issue. It is after this that Ronnie takes off her hood to reveal a mutant even more wolf-like than Wolverine himself, as Wolfsbane is the 3rd member of Callisto's posse of mutants. Emma is startled, which only generates further questions about how mutants like this should be treated, and that Genosha itself has already forced Wolfsbane back into hiding as if she were living anywhere else. It's a real issue, and Emma tries to tackle it, but the 3 mutants seem to insist that there's nearly as many mutants with similar issues who already feel the same way about Genosha as there are non-physical deformed mutants. The field trip begins to sour. Emma decides to work her way back down with the mutant youth. The other young mutants try and extend a hand of friendship to Callisto, but they have little success. After this, Emma calls a meeting between the mutants and tells them that she's going to go on broadcast to represent the underseen mutants, and that she wants to do everything in her power to make sure they feel safe and accommodated for. Essex has been invited to the meeting, and he perhaps offers a different perspective, telling Emma to let the water settle first, that the rest of the world has hardly begun to accept mutants, let alone mutants who wouldn't even remind them of themselves. Emma is caught in the crossroads of what she believes is the right thing and what might be the right move politically, and she breaks down in the middle of the meeting room. She acknowledges that it might be political suicide, but that she also doesn't see a path forward where they feel accepted otherwise. Essex says that they will do all they can to make sure that those mutants feel seen, that it will have to be personal. Logan and Magic tell Emma that they'll do everything they can in the classroom. Emma questions if it will be enough, but ultimately decides that she will have to wait to reveal this to the rest of the world. There's a few more conversations in the meeting room without Essex about Emma carrying the weight of the country on her shoulders and how it's impacting her mental health, which ultimately culminates in the 4 admitting to each other that they're family now, and that they have to pick up each other's slack so that nobody gets pushed to a low that drags them down. But that is going to be changed in the finale as we get in the final scene of episode 7, Essex and Psylocke talking in the laboratory, with Essex telling Psylocke of a plan to potentially cause further division on the island, and that they are going to commit an act of terrorism. Episode 8, the finale. This one's going to be a huge shakeup. We'll open with a massive tracking shot on the streets of Hammer Bay, and this shot won't lift until well into the episode as we move between various points, almost like Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 10 finale's opening. On the top of the state capitol building, with Emma wishing him goodbye, Bishop takes off in the state-issued helicopter as he's headed to Canada to meet Xavier and try to uncover the problems of his memory. We track down to Essex, who looks up from a phone booth afar, telling the other side of the phone that Bishop has left. He then calls Psylocke. It's time, he says, and the camera moves away to Magik and Wolverine, who are walking down to the port to greet the newest wave of Genoshan immigrants. As Wolverine and Magik greet the mutants, someone familiar steps off the boat. Mystique. In shock, the two frantically scramble to try and figure out what's going on, but Mystique grabs them and begins walking. She has far more important news than they could have ever expected. As they're walking, Jubilee skates by and greets Logan and Magik, and the camera switches to her as she skates deeper into the city, and we get a shot from below, which reveals Psylocke planting a bomb in a specific neighborhood of the city where mutants with physical deformities seemingly live. She plants the bomb, and it reads 10 minutes on the timer. She takes off running through the sewers and pops out just a few streets away, where the camera zooms into Mystique, Logan, and Magik talking in a local diner. Mystique tells Logan that she's been hiding something from him, and that she didn't actually abort the pregnancy, and that she and Logan have a child together. That's back to the Wolverine when I said that she told him that. As of the current time, the child is still hardly a toddler, but Mystique reveals that he was taken from her by the USSR, who has begun experimenting on several mutants in an isolated facility in Siberia, which Mystique intends to break into. Logan, completely astonished, tells Mystique that he'll go with her to save him, but Mystique intervenes and turns to Magik to tell her that there's more to the story. She was able to acquire more information about the mutants being held there and found another Rasputin, the brothers of Magik. Which brother, we don't know, but one of the brothers is there. Mystique then tells them that she's leaving on the night boat off the island, and they all agree they'll go to the USSR to break into the facility. The three begin walking out of the diner, and the camera turns to Northstar and Aurora, who have just sped by on the opposite side of the street. As we follow them on their daily run, an explosion booms in the distance, halting the two dead in their tracks. Every mutant that we've been involved with so far goes to the street to help the survivors of the explosion. No serious mutant that we've introduced so far was hurt in this explosion, but Callisto is really angry at Emma, and she asks how any mutant could commit an act of terrorism like this on one of their own. And we plant the seed for the Morlocks in Season 2. Emma isn't sure what to say, and Wolverine and the others just keep running back into the rubble to try and find more. We will finish the episode with the main mutants and Essex discussing what can be done, and this is when Wolverine and Magik tell Emma that they'll be leaving with Mystique in just a few hours to go to the USSR, as Mystique relays her findings to Emma. Emma, obviously upset, asks them not to leave her in a time of crisis like this, and a huge yelling match begins to take place, with Magik saying family is stronger than anything else. Emma tells her that she is family, which is what they declared last episode, but Wolverine and Magik hold to their ideas, and they absolutely must leave. And even more so, Wolverine says he can't let his innocent child, suffer like this without doing anything. Essex tells Emma that he believes if they hold strong, they can handle the situation just together, and that he'll stand with her side by side, perhaps asking other nations to help rebuild in Genosha while Emma works in the Morlock community to restore hope. And the episode finishes somberly, with Emma and Essex watching as the other three sail off into the night, and they turn around to walk back into the city. We see the diamond on Essex's head glow one more time. The X-Men will return, ... And that is Genosha Season 1. I had a lot of fun writing this. I tried to shorten it down. This video is very long. The other videos will not be this long, but this one ended up being so because it's an 8-episode show. When we do Genosha Season 2, hopefully it isn't this long, but it might be. Anyway, the next film in the MCC, the Marvel Cinematic Collective, will be Spider-Man, and I hope to see you for that. Thanks all. Samiel from Home of Comics, signing out.